And then he got thinged in containment because there was like a hole underneath. So maybe the thing came in and thinged his ass, and then he got thinged.
They're like, how did he escape? It's like, well, clearly he's thinged.
Worse than that, the eggshell gut that opened up has teeth. Has huge, sharp teeth. I'm like, what the hell is the anatomy of the thing?
It's a problem. That's what the anatomy is. It's problematic. And right here, I'm like, does he have some thing strength?
Has he got that thing in him?
Got that thing in him?
It's a problem. The thing is a problem. This is the worst problem to have.
Of all, if you go to Antarctica and you say, what's the biggest problem I might face? This is it.
Welcome in. It's Halloween. It's spooky season.
Ooh.
We got some badass tunes. Compliments of our friends over at Electro Swing Thing. They're located at electroswingthing.com. We're coming in hot on our last week. And speaking of Swing Thing, how fitting, it's for The Thing. That's the movie we're reviewing this week.
Nice segue.
My name is James, a.k.a. Captain Pop, a.k.a. Jimmy Crack Corn. I have so many popcorn nicknames, I can't even keep track anymore. So if you just want to call me Jim or Jimbo or Jiminy, Popcorn Crickets, it's all good.
Do you ever feel the pressure, James, of switching over to a Jim or a Jimbo or a Jimmy? Or are you just happy in the James lane?
I'm standing my ground in the James lane. My dad was Jim. I'm not going to be a Jimbo the Clown. Jiminy, I think, is just made up.
I just feel like James comes with a lot of pressure of nicknames.
I've seen that meme, so it hits home whenever I see that. Whenever it pops up, I relate.
I'm Nick. I'm the chief corn dog. I am the dog of corn. This podcast is very corn centric. Popcorns, a lot of corn happening in our films, and so I make myself the corn dog. Am I a dog who lives in the corn, or am I a deep fried glizzy? It's impossible to know.
I can't tell if you are a dog that has that corn in them or that corn that's got that dog in them. It's just like, it's so fluid. I don't know what's happening in front of my face right now. I wish you guys could see this.
Varies on a week to week basis, honestly.
At the same time, it ain't that bad if you got that corn in you.
Or if you got that dog in you.
Regardless, we got that corn dog. We got the popcorn in us because we're just a bunch of silly geese talking about movies. It's October. This is the month of corn. Corn stalks, corn maze, pumpkins, jack-o'-lanterns.
Candy corn.
That's very divisive.
We should have candy corn points instead of popcorn points. Maybe we should have thought about that. Last week is spooky season, and we're starting to get some ideas.
I feel like, we should assign a special one-off candy corn point system for this week.
Now you said it's divisive. So the question is more candy corns good, or is that bad?
That's what I'm saying.
It depends on who you ask.
What's your thoughts on candy corn?
Big fan. Love me some candy corn. Lord help me, I do.
Okay. If it's like a 5 is the neutral zone, 10 is I love it, 0 is I hate it. I'm on like the 6 end. I could take it or leave it, but I'm not like a hater.
Now I need to say this. You can't, I just need a handful of candy corns. I can't have like a whole
bag of wax.
I can't stuff myself full with them. If they've been sitting out for more than 30 minutes, no. You got to get a fresh corn. They're still a little soft.
Are they fresh?
Fresh out of the bag.
I feel like they're just the same consistency if they're laying out for months or if they're fresh out the bag.
Oh no! You ever seen like a gingerbread house? You ever made a gingerbread house? Use some candy corn.
How to
pick
candy
them off a couple days later.
Candy corn on the gingerbread house?
Never done that.
You're crossing genres over here.
I've lived a full life, James, and I've seen some things and I've done some things. Some I'm proud of, some I'm not.
Apparently I haven't, which is why I'm trying to up my catalog of movies, classics, movies I've never seen before. I think this is one we both have never seen because we're watching John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982. Super classic horror movie.
Yeah, I always heard of The Thing and I always associated it with like the Swamp Thing. I was like, I don't know. So like James said, this is directed by John Carpenter. And John Carpenter, Swiss Army knife of a talent, director, sometimes writer, sometimes composer, does music. But we recognize him from Halloween, The Fog. But previously on this show, the Escape from New York and Escape from LA.
This is our third time hosting friends of the show, John Carpenter and Kurt Russell, back to the Just Play It stage. Welcome back, gentlemen.
That's right. So as James just said, this does star our boy Kurt Russell.
And also, welcome back, Keith David from Volcano.
Yeah.
It took me actually quite a while to realize who that was, because this is a super young Keith David. 40 minutes in, I finally recognized Keith David. And I think it was the voice. I do forget that he's actually the voice of the president in Rick and Morty. But this is like a Clancy Brown guy. He has been in hundreds of stuff. Young Keith David.
40 minutes in, when he got the crazy eyes, that's when I was like, I know you.
You are the volcano cop and every other side character I've seen in every single movie ever.
Also starring in this movie, Mr. Wilford Brimley, who I do enjoy. I know him from The Natural. We also have a ton of side characters, if you will. The movie really sets itself up for quote unquote side characters. We'll talk about that here in a second.
I was gonna say I was surprised he even threw Wilford Brimley up there, because I feel like it's just such a ensemble of side characters. It's like Kurt Russell and Keith David are kind of the two main guys that we'll follow, but everyone else is just kind of like part of the crew.
Estimated budget somewhere around the $15 million range, and our worldwide box office here is $19.6 million. So not a huge return. I was a little surprised. Maybe it's because horror thriller movies usually don't do well at the box office. You have a much more niche audience. Not sure, but
yeah, I know they did have a different director almost attached to this. The guy's name was like Toby
Maguire.
Not Maguire. I mean, his name is Tobe, so I'm assuming that's Toby or Tobe.
Like Job from Arrested Development.
Like Job. So Job Hooper, aka Tobe, aka Toby Hooper, whatever your name is. The studio Universal Pictures had already had Toby Hooper under contract and wanted him to direct this movie. But he kind of had a different interpretation of the story. He was trying to make it like almost like a horror comedy. That's the main difference. But other key differences were the alien in Hooper's version did not shapeshift or assimilate anybody. It just ate them. It was just like a hungry hippo. And the other difference is the main character was called the Captain. And the film was about his obsessive mission to find and kill the thing, which sounds very like Captain Ahab-esque. Lastly, the big one, tonally, Hooper wanted this to be a horror comedy with lots of slapstick humor. And apparently there was a scene where a character gets caught by the thing after literally slipping on a banana skin.
Yeah.
Lawrence Terman, one of the producers, said it would have been one of the worst movies ever made.
I kind of want to watch that version now, though. Is that bad of me?
Doesn't exist. So I think maybe that's why they had the budget so low, because they didn't really know exactly the direction they wanted to take this. And John Carpenter was not necessarily the first pick for the studio. He was the first pick for a couple of the key producers, but I think they just thought like his take on it was too risky, maybe too dark. So maybe that's why they were just going for low risk, low reward. And that's essentially what they got.
Fair.
Trust the artist, dude. I'm sick of like preaching this on this podcast. The studios need to let their directors cook, dude, unless you're Stephen King or Mark A.Z. Dibby, you know?
Well, especially if you're going to bill a guy such as Kurt Russell. I understand it's 1982. He is not quite the Kurt Russell that we know yet, but
this was the turning point. Escape from New York, followed by this the next year. It was the turning point for Mr. Kurt.
Anyway, let's hit the log line, and then let's get ourselves into plot talk. Let's really get into this movie, into this thing.
Let me hit you with that log line. A research team in Antarctica is hunted by a shape-shifting alien that assumes the appearance of its victims. That sounds like my nightmare, and I don't like it.
I don't like it either, but it's damn well on the nose.
So let's see if this 40-year plus old movie has still got it. If it's still a classic with our generation. Let's jump into some plot talk.
Plot talk.
Plot talk.
All right, so setting the scene of this movie and the vibe of this movie, just before we even get into plot talk here, as the logline suggested, we have a shape-shifting alien that is assuming its appearance of its victims. So we know there's going to be a lot of confusion.
I didn't know this was an alien.
Yeah.
Like you said, I thought the thing was like a swamp thing or just like some sort of
hellish monster.
like earthbound monster. But I'm like, are we getting Kroll right now? Because we're starting out in space. I'm getting Kroll vibes because I'm thinking, oh, alien movie? But the rest of the movie plays out like a typical monster horror movie.
Right off the bat, I'm like, Kurt Russell, get the glaive. But that's,
you gotta steal it from Ken Marshall.
As we get into plot talk, there's a lot of moving pieces in this movie, a lot of side characters. There's a core group of people here in Antarctica, maybe 7 or 8 guys, all on this Antarctic base, research base. So we're going to try and keep it about as straight as possible, but just know that there's a lot of, it's hard to keep track of everything.
There's a lot of names
in this movie. So we'll do our best through plot talk. Yeah. So we're going to do our best to do justice. So we open up in Antarctica, and we have a Norwegian helicopter pursuing a sled dog. We have this like husky dogs running through the snow in Antarctica, and there's this helicopter chasing it all the way, like taking shots at it. This guy leaning out of the helicopter, firing shots, and they chase it back to an American research station.
I'm like, how many movies are we going to watch where people are trying to kill dogs? I'm sick of this shit, dude.
There's a few anxious dog moments for me.
This is Jed, the wolf dog. He's an actor. He passed away in 1995, but he did a great job.
1995, and this was 82. That's a good long life for a dog that size.
That was an old pup.
Good boy.
Yeah, he was born in 1977, died in 1995.
18 years for a husky? Holy smokes. It's a beautiful dog.
Oh,
my goodness,
what?
it's a beautiful dog.
Oh, cool. Jed permanently remained with some guy named Clint Rowe in Acton, California. That's where my uncle lived and owned a house, and I stayed at his house for 3 weeks when I moved to LA. So Jed was maybe around if we visited him. Jed, Acton, the actor? Okay, so yeah, we're chasing this wolf dog, and off the bat, I'm like, screw these guys in a helicopter trying to kill this dog, or if it's a wolf, it kind of looks wolf-ish. But
it's like Balto. We got Balto vibes.
Dog runs up to the American research station. I don't think we quite know, or at least I didn't understand that it was a Norwegian helicopter, but what did it say on the side? Like Norway?
Yeah, there's a running gag at the beginning of this movie where they keep saying like the Swedish, and they're like, it's Norwegian.
So they land the helicopter. The Norwegian guy shouting in Norwegian. He's got his gun drawn, and all the Americans are like, dude, I don't speak Norwegian. What the hell are you saying?
Put the gun down.
Dipshit homeboy in the back whips out like a piece of dynamite and does the thing where he cocks his hand back and then just slips out of his mitten and goes behind him. And he turns around. He's like, oh, I better go dig it out and get it. And then he fucking blows up. Helicopter blows up. He blows up. I was thinking, what was the plan there?
What a classic mistake. The whole movie could have ended right there.
Yeah. No,
if everybody just blew up because of this Norwegian.
The other Norwegian guy just shoots at the dog and ends up like grazing. Actually, no, I think he just straight up shoots one of the guys in the leg. The Americans.
Yeah.
The American guy, Gary, he's like, Pop, you're dead. Don't come at my base and shoot my guys and this dog. I hate you.
On sight.
Yeah.
So we start with that. We're like, that was weird. We do get a lot of shots of like close-ups of the dog. And so right off the bat, I'm thinking to myself, this dog's not okay. This dog is not, there's something up with this dog.
The dog gets a lot of screen time and acts very suspicious.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching everybody. I'm like, you know something.
Jed, man, he's a great actor.
So we're introduced to a couple of guys. So we get R.J. McCready, and this is our Kurt Russell. With a name like that, you know it's Kurt Russell, R.J. McCready.
Absolutely.
We're also introduced to Dr. Copper.
Not to be confused with Dr. Connors from Spider-Man.
Never make that mistake. So Dr. Copper is played by Richard Dysart. They get some tape from the Norwegians, and they see some like weird stuff going on. They're like, we got to go figure out what these Norwegians were up to. So they go to investigate the Norwegian base. R.J. McCready, he's a helicopter pilot for the crew. So that's kind of his. He's not a nerd. He flies helicopters.
He packs guns and flies choppers. He's badass. All these other guys are like doctors, researchers, and there's like a rogue like farmhand. Yeah. And like a dog whisperer, and then like I guess Gary is like a cop. I don't know. Was Gary a cop or a security guard?
He's like
I don't
the
know.
Station commander or something.
Yeah.
Like every American base has like a military police officer.
Yeah, there's like a radio guy. There's like a guy that works in the kitchen, does like the cooking and the cleaning. Everyone else is mostly researchers, scientists, but not badass McCready. He's a helicopter pilot who's super badass. He's got the craziest drip, though.
Oh, dude. There's multiple times that he runs out into like the storms of Antarctica. Instead of putting on like goggles and a face covering, he throws on this cowboy hat and he like runs out. You're like, what?
It's like not a cowboy hat. It's like a Pioneer Gold Rush hat. It's so
yeah, it's like there's no sun.
It's so big.
It's so floppy. Like it's just gonna blow off.
It's so floppy. It's not built for Antarctica. But hey, it works for McCready, and I guess he can fly in that.
So they get to the Norwegian base and they're investigating it, and like there's been like this place is messed up. There's been stuff going down here, and stuff that's like been burned. And among the charred remains and frozen corpses, they find this burnt corpse of this kind of half human. Like it's all messed up. It honestly looks a little bit like Emperor Palpatine in episode 3 when he finally uses his power and his face like wrinkles up and gets all distorted.
Except
I was like,
times 2, because it's like 2 faces schmelted together. Looks like almost something out of a wax museum. And I just thought it was funny. And they're like, what is it? And I was like, this is obviously like 2 human heads that are like forged together. I don't know how that happens, but they can't tell that it's 2 people. They're like, what is it? It's like, those are 2 eyes. Those are 2 eyes. That's a mouth and teeth. That's a mouth and teeth. And those are noses.
It's like, it's really messed up. So they bring it back to their base and they're like, we got to figure this out.
Great idea.
So their biologist, Dr. Blair, this is Wilfred Brimley. He autopsies the remains and he finds there's like human organs in it. He's like, what? Like, what is this foreign body that we're looking at? And there's human organs in it. And so they're all like, this is weird. In the meantime, we have another character, Clark. He kennels our dog, Jed. They're like, get this mutt to the kennels.
Meh.
And he throws it in the kennels, and all the other dogs start freaking out. And at this point, I'm like, God, don't kill the dogs. Don't kill the dogs. Don't kill the dogs. Don't kill the dogs. Please don't kill the dogs. Please. I hate when dogs die in movies.
Jed, the dog, goes into the kennel, and he's staring at the wall. And I'm thinking, okay, one of 2 things can happen. He knows what that 2-faced, deformed monstrosity is in the other room and is staring at the wall, maybe in the other room where it is, or he's the thing. And the moment we linger in this kennel scene for too long, you realize this is the thing. And all the dogs are like, all the senses are, the instincts are kicking in. And you're thinking, great. Some dogs are going to get hurt. They're going to get harmed. And this is the 80s, so you know they're going to do it for real and bother these dogs on the set. Now, I'm not going to be cool with it.
Not cool.
But, Nick, what does this crazy-ass special effects puppet dog do that you immediately thought of?
So its face opens up, and it looks like, if you've seen Stranger Things, it looks like the Demogorgon. Like season 1, its face opens up almost like flower petals.
More specifically, the Demodogs from season 2.
Demodogs as well. I didn't even think that.
It's no question Stranger Things took inspiration, paid homage to this movie. It's very satisfying to finally see the source material that they were making references to.
Fan theory is the Thing. Does the Thing get captured and brought to Hawkins?
I don't know. There's a whole upside down realm, and we did see this thing come from outer space. Well, technically, we didn't see it come from outer space. We saw a spaceship come in. Maybe the spaceship crashed into the ice and opened the gate to the upside down.
There we go.
And there's actually still aliens down underneath there. And then the aliens from Signs come up, and they're actually just looking for their homies. But they can't get them because they're in frozen water. And they don't like water.
Dude.
Yeah, we're popping off spooky season theories, man. Oh, my God. I'm blowing my mind.
We're going to build a whole universe.
Holy shit. So yeah, in Stranger Things, in the first season, in the Dungeons and Dragons basement, they have the Thing poster. So it's like an obvious reference. Super satisfying to see it from the source material. Like I'm a kid in the 80s watching this grotesque special effects monstrosity horror movie. Can you describe how this thing, quote unquote, hulks out?
Oh, it just, I mean,
like describe the practical effects that we're watching
in this scene specifically, or just in general for the Thing.
In this scene specifically, I know he kind of just, the Thing has so many just different rules for what it is and what it creates, and like it's the Thing.
Yeah, basically, so its face opens up and it has these like tentacles that shoot out, and the tentacles are what gets you.
They look like red vines.
They look like if you've seen the picture of that potato that was left alone for too long in an apartment and all the roots spread out. It's very close to that. It looks like potato roots. Anyway, once it decides to break out, it does not need to live inside the bounds of the organism anymore. Like, it doesn't take on the organism's looks to be functional. It takes it on to fool you.
I don't know. Does it need a host, or is it just a thing?
I think it needs a host in some way, shape, or form, but really it does its thing.
Does its thing. Haha.
I know. We're going to say thing a lot and be like, thing's a very common word. But that's exactly what it does to these other dogs in the kennel. It just takes them over. The commotion alerts the team, and then we get Childs.
Keith David.
And he has a flamethrower. So this flamethrower is a huge part of this movie. The flamethrower shows up, right here in this scene. We find out the thing does not like fire. Like, that's how you kill it. That's how you kill it once and for all. You incinerate it.
Which is pretty nice. Pretty straightforward. You don't have to like concoct a crazy chemical or anything or find kryptonite. It's just, okay, cool. We could just burn it.
Yep. So he kills the dog thing. And the dog thing, you could see when it dies, it had already like absorbed a few other dogs. There's like dog faces in part of its anatomy.
Like a big eye, like Cyclops from Kroll. It's like that's back up in the guts, the meatball exterior. And you're just thinking, what the hell is this thing?
If you're wondering if we're going to find out, you will not. The anatomy of the thing is never explained.
Well, I have to say, Kurt Russell, RJ McCready, he literally says the thing is different. Confirmed, the thing is built different, and no one knows what to say about that. I don't know what to tell you.
And in this scene, he literally got that dog in him. Literally. He's got that dog in him.
You heard it first. The thing is built different, and he got that dog in him. And I don't want to hear anybody come at my guy or girl or thing like that, because he's like that. The thing is, seriously, it is different. I don't know how it operates, because it assimilates these dogs. It attacks them, latches on, brings it into his gross, disgusting red vine tentacle meatball body. One of it gets incinerated, but there's like a different like spider meatball licorice thing that like goes up into the vents.
Like breaks off, yeah.
Yeah, so you're just like, what the hell? How do you beat this thing?
We'll find out. So Dr. Blair autopsies the dog thing and figures out it's an organism that can perfectly imitate other life forms. He figures it out really quick.
Dude, he puts this together hella fast. Like an instant. Yeah. And we get this
explains it right to the audience.
Well, we get like this really like dumbed down, like, I don't know, biology for dummies, computer simulation, because it's like dog cell, thing latches onto dog cell, becomes dog cell goes to human cell, becomes human cell. Dr. Blair's like, I got it. He can shapeshift.
It all makes sense now. It can assimilate. And
we waste no time figuring this out.
Like, here's the crux of the movie. Like, we don't know who to trust anymore. The thing could be anybody. So the Americans decide we got to go back to the Norwegian base. We got to figure out what's going on. And so they find this large excavation site, and there's this alien spacecraft in it. What?
Huh?
So we're like, okay, it's an alien. Understood. One of our guys, Norris, side character, doesn't even have a name tag. Don't worry about him.
It's not even got a name tag.
And look at you. You haven't even got a name tag. You've got no chance.
He estimates it's been buried for over 100,000 years. Don't know how he could just estimate that in the ice. Just looking at it, he's like, 100,000.
Well, this is a base camp full of smarty pants, so I guess we'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
True. Maybe he's like, that's 50 feet, 50 feet deep, and so that means he could figure it out. I'm not against it.
All right.
And then they find this smaller human-sized dig site that almost looks like a coffin. This is where the thing came from. At that point, I'm looking at the movie and I'm like, everybody needs to just get in a room with each other. One guy you trust with a flamethrower and just wait this one out. Because one of them, is infected. But RJ McCready says, I'm taking the helicopter and I'm flying over there. Like, the storm's coming. He's like, I don't care. And he puts on his floppy hat and he's out the door.
Puts on the 49ers mascot hat and sourdough Sam's on out of there.
Sourdough Sam.
She's just sourdough in this situation.
When they get back to the base camp, Dr. Blair has grown paranoid.
Snaps.
And he's like, this creature could take over the earth, and he starts just destroying things. James, I think you said he's hulking out.
No, Blair is hulking out in this scene. One, he's going postal. So I think they come back and they've discovered that there's already been a bunch of damage to the radio equipment. He has disassembled the helicopter. He's got hit. I think he's in the radio room with the character of Windows.
Mm-hmm.
And Windows, I think, has been shot or harmed by Blair. He's like a hostage almost. And Blair's like shooting the gun at the door at his crewmates. And then he runs out of bullets and throws the gun. And a dude is like, got that dad strength. He might have that corn in him because he's like he shoves our badass American hero, Kurt Russell, off him to the ground like it's nothing. I'm like, this guy's hulking out.
And right here, I'm like, does he have some thing strength?
Has he got that thing in him?
Got that thing in him?
Or what?
They do end up taking him down. There's some great 80s punch sound effects that happen in this scene when they finally get him. They like knock him out, and it's just whoopsh, whoopsh to the dome. When you get a couple whoopsh to the dome, like, you know you're knocked out.
Now, Nick, speaking of Windows.
Yeah.
I was like, radio guy, you look familiar. Like, you sound familiar. You look familiar. Did you recognize this man?
I didn't.
Oh my God, here we go. Top tier facial recognition coming in. I was really the voice that helped sell it. This is Thomas Waits, and he plays Fox from the Warriors.
He does.
Not to be confused with Tom Waits, because Tom Waits is someone else.
Yes.
There's Tom Waits, who's like a musician, but he also kind of acts, and his name is Waits, and this is Thomas Waits, which is Waits. So there is two Tom Waits, but this is our Fox from The Warriors, 1979, Walter Hill's movie.
Great poll, James.
Dude,
great poll.
I'm telling you, I'm good for something.
Love to see that. Now, one of our crewmates, Bennings, he's the first victim.
This is played by Peter Maloney,
and he gets what would you call it? Infected, taken over by,
assimilated.
What term do you want to use? Assimilated?
That's the term they use in the movie and in descriptions. So he gets assimilated, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not him.
Right. He is not him.
RJ McCready is him, but Bennings is not him. The thing shapeshifts. So when you think you see Bennings, it's not Bennings possessed or zombie bitten. And this is the thing that has taken on his form. And oddly enough, the brain, the way he can speak English, it's a problem. The thing is a problem. This is the worst problem to have.
Of all, if you go to Antarctica and you say, what's the biggest problem I might face? This is it. This is hands down it.
And I think Bennings is the one that got shot by the Norwegians too, right?
Having a bad day.
He's like yelling at Knowles, the kitchen guy, to like turn down the music, and it's just, he's having a rough go. But it doesn't matter because he's super dead. And they have this big scene outside where his hands, I think, turn into like big crab claws or something.
Yeah, like long, like
Freddy Krueger, and he's like, "Rah!" And then they just burn this fool on the ground. At this scene, I'm thinking, okay, they burned it, but how does the thing keep showing up? Like, I didn't see anything crawl away. They're like out in the middle of the snow. I just kept getting lost of like where the thing was. Is there like so many things strewn about?
I think so. I think it like replicates almost, because we see that later on a bit.
So basically, this is like Flubber all over again.
Yeah, multiple people can be assimilated at a time. It could take anybody and everybody.
I need a Flubber versus the Thing Avengers style movie, please, because that would be insane.
Almost like an Alien versus Predator. Like the Thing.
Weird. You know what? We'll get Toby Hooper to direct it because it'll be the perfect blend of comedy and horror.
I think Alien versus Predator, they were in a hole in Antarctica as well. So maybe this could all be connected. But I think the thing wins, dude.
Dude, we're coming up with some great ideas here.
Yeah, people need to start talking to us.
Or listening.
So the next thing they do is they take Dr. Blair, who's been freaking out, and they're like, you are a liability. We're locking you in the tool shed. I don't know how insulated this tool shed is in Antarctica, but they throw him in a tool shed. What really strikes me at this point was as MacReady is putting him in the tool shed, Dr. Blair looks at him and says, keep a close eye on Clark. Clark's the one who handled the dog.
Correct.
And it's the first seed of distrust that is really sown into the movie. And you're like, oh, I see where this is going to go. So this really starts to become a movie where like you can't trust anybody.
The paranoia is running awry. But before this, when Dr. Blair explains it all and says this thing can assimilate and become whatever it wants, dogs, humans, it's a disaster, and causes him to snap. I'm sitting there thinking someone has already got that thing in them. Someone's already the thing. There's a thing among us right now. I'll kind of go back and forth with you if you had any suspicions or if you thought it was one person at certain points in the movie from here on out. Because it's funny. Mm-hmm. I thought of that as the movie was happening, because there is a scene in the beginning with Jed, the dog, and he's walking down a hallway. There's a lot of fade to black scenes in this movie, and they kind of like end on freeze frames. It was a little vintage old school style. I didn't really know why that was an editing choice, but but the dog walks down the hallway and then looks into a room, like stares at someone who's sitting on like a bed or something. And this person has a silhouette shadow on the wall, and then it fades to black. And you're like, that was weird. But I mean, it stuck with me because it was so odd and out of place. So as soon as Dr. Blair says this thing could already be among us, I'm thinking that whoever was in that room is the thing. And I was trying to just recall what the shadow looked like. And I was thinking, okay, I think it's either the radio guy, Windows, or that weird guy, Palmer, I think is the name.
That's like always sweating.
He's like very eccentric. He's got like a vest, and he's kind of like the oddball. Like, I don't know what his job is actually, but he's kind of like a questionable character, like a goofy wild card, if you will. I was like, I think it's those two.
The hard part about this whodunit, it's not like there's a killer among us. It's like it could be everybody.
Yeah.
It could be 7/8 of the crew. Like there was a point where I thought to myself, RJ is the only non-infected person here. What if they were all infected and just messing with them?
That'd be crazy, dude.
Yeah, but the thing is a problem. So it could be.
Well, the dog was the thing. We all know that now. He went into that homeboy's room. So whoever that was is already dead, and the thing has already taken them over. It was either Windows or Palmer, I thought, or it could be the dog guy. And then literally at this scene, Blair was like, watch out, keep an eye on Clark. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, there we go. Well, I was like, now I don't think it's him because he just said that. But Clark was the one he was kind of the obvious suspect because he was hanging out with the dog the most. The silhouette kind of had like curly hair that grows up, not down. I was like, this is like a white guy with curly, wiry hair, obviously. So it's either Windows or Palmer. And those are my main two suspects right now.
I thought it was Clark.
Or Fuchs, who's another guy.
The other reason I thought it was Clark was because he was so close to the dog. So when they killed the dogs, he was like, no.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, are you mad that?
I was like, are you protecting the thing?
Yeah. So I'm like, you're a suspect. But then once Blair was like, watch out for him, I'm like, oh, now it's too obvious.
I'm going to go back to Windows or the weird guy.
So after Blair tells him to look out for Clark, they all meet back in the base here. It's all shot at this Antarctic base. Which really lowered the budget cost because you're all just in one area. Although you're probably doing fake snow, so I don't know.
I think I read that a lot of it was shot on a soundstage. Obviously, they're not going to Antarctica. I think I read that it was in Los Angeles and in the UK on sound stages, and they just pumped the AC in there to like 4 degrees so that all the cold breath effects were real.
Wow. Long day at the office.
We were watching that. We're like, aren't they in Antarctica? They're like running out with like no gloves on and just like very light layers. So you're just like, I don't know if you're in Antarctica.
Floppy hats.
Floppy fucking sourdough hats.
So our boy Copper comes up with a plan, and he goes, we should test for infection by comparing our current blood with the uncontaminated blood samples held in storage, which I thought was cool because I'm like, that's realistic. Because if you're doing that, like even space missions, a mission where you're going to be gone from civilization where you don't have a blood donor, like you need to have bags of your own blood in case anything happens. But the blood stores have been destroyed. And they're like, the Thing somehow knew about this, and there's only 1 or 2 people with access to it. One of them being Gary, and they're like, Gary, you're out. Like we need a new leader here.
Screw you, Gary.
Gary was the cop essentially, so he was running it naturally. And they're like, we don't trust you. But who do they trust, James?
I mean, if it was me, I wouldn't trust anybody.
The only man for the job is helicopter pilot R.J. McCready.
R.J. McCready, helicopter pilot, flamethrower, wielder at your service.
Fuchs went out to get a sample of Blair's blood. So when RJ, Windows, and Knowles go outside, they're like, we haven't seen Fuchs. They find his charred corpse out in the snow, and they're like, he must have burned himself alive to avoid being assimilated, which, honestly, Fuchs is a real one. Because if you will burn yourself alive so that you wouldn't get assimilated and like have your crew die, it'd be like if you were in a zombie apocalypse. Would you rather just become a zombie, or would you want to like kill yourself in probably one of the worst ways imaginable? I would think burning alive. I'd just be like, bite me, zombie. I'll just become a zombie. I don't want to burn myself alive. That's some dedication.
Can you say that Blair is also a real one? Because he was like, this thing cannot get out. I'm destroying the radio comms. I'm destroying the helicopter. Like, we all die here. Can you also give him the credit?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he did it in a much less noble way. He
is a crazy person.
His own crew. Yeah, he did it out of panic.
I mean, he was basically saying we're all going to die here anyway.
It would have been noble just for everybody to just get in a big bonfire and set the whole place ablaze. But here we are. So he killed himself. Windows returns to the base. McCready and Knowles are investigating McCready's shack. There's this scene where he's like, I want to go check on my shack. They're like, why? They look over. He's like, because I turned the lights off when I left. The lights are on in the window, and you're like, oh, dang.
No, the lights are on.
When they return, Knowles abandons McCready in the storm, and they think he's been assimilated because they find some of his torn clothes in the shack. They're like, what is this? Now, it would make sense if his light was on when it shouldn't be, that somebody's framing him. But I give a lot of grace to this movie because everyone's freaking out. So McCready comes back. The team debates whether to let him back inside. McCready gets inside, and he holds the group hostage with some dynamite. Because the only way he can kill him is with the flamethrower, and he has dynamite in his hand, and he's like, go for it, dude.
Apparently, Kurt Russell almost killed himself with dynamite on this movie as well. He throws...
Is it real dynamite?
Actual real dynamite. And I think it blew him back so far that it could have seriously injured him. He was like, I didn't think it was going to be that powerful.
That's why you don't carry real dynamite.
That's a $15 million budget, baby.
Also wondering why there's so much dynamite at this. I don't know if maybe that's how you dig into ice, but I feel like you'd crack a lot of ice. But they have a lot of dynamite at this Antarctic base.
They have a lot of, explosives, a lot of flamethrower fuel. They were ready for something like this. During
the encounter, our man Norris, he starts to have a heart attack.
Who's Norris? He's another guy on this crew.
He's just one of the crew.
There's so many guys.
Our boy Copper, he's going to get the defibrillator and save Norris. And at this moment, I was like, this is happening.
I think Norris is probably the most famous, disgusting victim from this movie. Like all the clips you see online or any kind of memes or any references to this movie. Norris really gets the short end of the thing stick.
Yes.
He's looking fucked up.
He is not okay.
Doctor takes out the defibrillators and hits him once, and then he's about to go on his big bulbous gut and just crunchy caves it in like it's some hollow eggshell. Worse than that, the eggshell gut that opened up has teeth. has huge, sharp teeth. I'm like, what the hell is the anatomy of the thing?
It's a problem. That's what the anatomy is. It's problematic.
Its biological makeup is classified as a problem. All caps.
Bites Copper's arm straight off. Clean.
Oh, yeah. The gut, like Norris's gut chomps the doctor's arms, and he's just, I think this is the scene where they hired an actual amputee and put on like a mask of the actor to like pantomime that he was like flailing around, freaking out. Doctor gets got, and Norris is like extendo necking up. His head is like all fucked up looking. He has sharp teeth for some reason, and his head like slides off the operating table with like green noodle goo, boogery puss color. I'm like,
so the thing can grow.
John Carpenter and special effects team were having a heyday with this. They were loving this.
There were no wrong answers in the SFX room.
Oh, and then by the way, turns into a spider and becomes spider head
and starts like scuttling away. The head's going to get away. I thought it was going to full on get away, but it stops in the doorway to look back. Oh, hell no.
Like no one notices it like scuttle around. And it's like there's a spider head on the ground. How do you not see this? It's a human head on the ground. And then luckily they torch this thing. But it doesn't matter because the thing is just everywhere.
McCready, after seeing this, he hypothesizes that every part of the thing is an individual life form with its own survival instinct. It's like, oh, the head was different than this. It can multiply, but it all has its own survival instinct. So what he's going to do is he's going to take blood samples from the whole crew, and he's going to boil the blood of each sample with a hot wire and see which person reacts from their blood being boiled. Not quite sure how this works, but I'm on board with it.
Loosey goosey with the biology. I don't need to get all deep into it.
Yeah.
I get it. I get what they're going for.
One of our guys, Clark, lunges at McCready with a scalpel.
This is the dog guy,
and McCready just murders him. McCready
pops
just
him.
murders him.
Everyone was like, "What? Well, you just killed?" He's like, "You're a killer now. You just killed a man." He's like, "Was it a man or was it a thing?" It's like, well, we don't know.
Well, they end up testing Clark's blood. Not a thing. Once it didn't like freak out after being shot, you should have been like, "Oh, I killed an innocent man."
McCready is a murderer.
So everybody's passing the test, and everybody's like freaking. Like everybody, it's a fairly like tense scene. As like he's putting the hot wire into everybody's blood,
and he has a couple people tied
reaction.
down. He has Childs tied down. He has Palmer tied down. I think it's Gary. Oh, Gary's tied down because he was accused of tampering with the blood.
Palmer's the guy who like freaking
They
out.
test his blood, and he's the thing. And he starts as an hour 23 minutes in, and he just starts like shaking, and he's tied next to Gary and Childs. And it's a really hilarious scene because Gary and Childs are like, they're like strapped to this thing.
Yeah, they're tied down. They're like, kill it.
Then we get like a great like Palmer. David Clennon is like shaking his body like he's convulsing. And then we cut away to a scared Childs and Gary. And then we cut back to Palmer. And this is like all special effects, makeup. I think it's my favorite scene of the movie because he's freaking out. There's comedy right next to him of Childs and Gary freaking out. And this is where I think his body like shoots up to the ceiling and like sticks to it.
It's like an Exorcist moment. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, Exorcist, another kind of like thing, Stranger Things was inspired by. Does he like go back on the ground? And this is where he like devours windows.
Yeah.
Just chomps on windows. Tom Waits with ES is dead.
Rip in peace.
Yeah. Oh, and McCready, and this is the one time the fucking flamethrower doesn't work. He's like trying to get it to start. I have to say, I was right. I'm never right. I said, hey, it's Windows or the weird guy. And it was a weird guy. I was like, oh, wow, look at that. Practical evidence was actually the truth. I read somewhere that the shadow silhouette was actually just an actor, or it was an extra that John Carpenter threw in because he's like, I want to hide the identity of who this could be. And I was like, well, I mean, you got an extra that has the same kind of silhouette as Windows and Palmer. So, I mean, it's no difference.
Was Windows already infected or was he?
No, Windows was fine because they do the test I don't know who they do first. I think they might do Windows first. They test Windows.
It's Windows first, because then
Clark,
they give him the gun.
He tests McCready. They test. I think they test, maybe possibly test Childs last, like after the whole shit goes down. And so basically everyone passes except for Palmer. So he was the thing from the jump.
So we're left with McCready, Childs, Gary, and Knowles. That's our 4 left of this crew.
You're thinking, hell yeah, 2 black guys and 2 white guys. We started with 2 black guys and they're still in the final 4. All right, John Carpenter, way to not fall into that trope.
Yeah, things are looking up for the brothers.
Not like fucking Stealth killed off Jamie Foxx halfway through the movie.
Real quick. And they're like, okay, so the 4 of us are safe. There's no more thing currently. But now we got to go test Blair. He's still left in the tool shed. No one's checked up on him.
he's
just out in this tool shed.
There's like a scene. He's like, I want to come inside. Can I come inside? It's fucking freezing out here. And they're just like, no.
You're too much of a liability.
I mean, they have a point because he was going insane.
Yeah, I don't blame
He's
them.
like, hey, I'm calm down now. All right. You know what? Who says that? People who are not calm and they want out of their.
Okay, I'm calm down.
Can I come inside? I swear to God, I won't shoot at anybody. I don't know.
We don't trust you.
No.
So Childs is left on guard duty while the other ones go out to Blair. See, the whole time I'm like, we need to implement buddy systems. Why would you leave one guy by himself at any point in time in this movie?
They don't learn.
But Blair has escaped. And they're like, how did he escape? It's like, well, clearly he's thinged.
He is thing.
They go down this like burrowed hole into the ice, and they find that Blair has destroyed helicopters, all these components, and he's trying to build a flying saucer.
Now, how fast did he put this together? This tunnel is built. There's this whole underground. I mean, maybe this underground base was already implemented into the base camp, but it seemed like they didn't really know about it.
I know a couple of things. One, that was a lot of work by one guy. Now it's a thing. That's fine.
Yeah, it's not a guy. It was a thing. And there's many things.
I know that
there's many things, as we know. There's things all over. So maybe if like Norris's head got away, it would start like chewing up the dirt, like start making a tunnel. It'd be built for that. Yeah. A moving mouth that just has no like real human anatomy. It'd be a great dirt chomper. You got these dogs running around, so maybe they burrowed the hole. But still, this is not a lot of time passing, and this is a lot of work that has been done. There's like a whole underground lab. And there's like a mini UFO spaceship that Blair, aka Thing, has been building.
I don't think there's any component you could find at that base or on a helicopter that could send something into orbit, into space.
Was it to send into orbit, or was it just to fly out of there and like go to a different country, a different continent?
If it wanted to fly out of there, it wouldn't have destroyed the helicopter.
That's it. I don't think Blair was Blair when he destroyed the helicopter. And then he got thinged in containment because there was like a hole underneath. So maybe the thing came in and thinged his ass, and then he got thinged.
It really comes down to we don't know when he got thinged.
Yeah, he got thingered.
So they see all this, and they return back to the base. Like, we got a problem. Childs is missing. The power generator is destroyed. There's no heat.
It sucks. It's the worst job ever.
Yeah, like there's no escape. He's like, the thing's gonna win. Like we have to kill it. Basically, it's time for suicide mission.
It's sabotage time.
Yeah. So McCready, Gary, and Knowles, they set explosives down in the tunnel area to destroy it. So they take all that dynamite. But the Blair thing is down there, kills Gary by putting his hand over his face. And there's this like,
oh, this was so nasty. He like puts it inside his skin.
Yeah, you could tell that Gary had like the actor had a latex mask on. He just was like all up in it, like all up in his grill.
In my timestamps of like who is the thing, which kind of just digressed into everyone's the thing. It's not like you said. It's not like a lone murderer of who done it. It's just the thing is doing it. I have notes that says like hour 23. It's the weird guy. Hour 29. Doctor building a mini UFO. He's suspect again. Pretend to sabotage. So I originally thought
is the guy.
I originally thought that he pretended to sabotage the escape plan, like the radio comms, so that he could trap everyone there and they couldn't call out for help. Now thinking about it, I do think he was human and he just wanted to cut it all off so that this thing could not escape?
It's hard to know because he was so involved in like the autopsies of it. It would have been so it's just hard. Like it's audience interpretation.
But then I read down hour 35 minutes, super Blair. He just put his hand in a guy's face skin. so but then like, yeah, you're just like, oh, the thing is everywhere. Like you don't know who's the thing at a certain point.
Everything's the thing. So the Blair thing transforms into an enormous creature. At this point, I'm like, if it could have done this off the bat, couldn't it have just killed everybody really easily? It transforms into this giant creature that's underground that starts like caving in the whole tunnel system. And I'm like, it can just grow exponentially. It's a problem, no doubt.
It's a flubber situation.
But MacReady does trigger the explosives with his dynamite and destroys the station. MacReady is then sitting by the burning remnants. He makes it out. Bottle of scotch in his hand.
Classic.
He's like, I'm going to die with the scotch. Child shows up. He's like, I got lost in the storm. I was pursuing Blair. And MacReady's like, sure. And eventually they just both die. They both accept they're going to freeze to death drinking the scotch. And they're like, we could both be the thing. Neither of us could be the thing. One of us could be the thing. It doesn't matter at this point. We're dead. I would argue it does matter because the thing could just freeze and then come back. If you know you're not the thing, you should try to burn that son of a bitch. But it's an ending that's just like, well, it is what it is. The thing is the thing.
And that's the thing. Directed by John Carpenter.
All right, James, let's get into our next portion here.
You got any nitpicks?
Nitpicks. Nothing big off the bat here. I have that the flamethrower has a lot of fuel. That flamethrower is used a lot. My other nitpick is it's hard to track everyone and their whereabouts, and that adds a little bit to the confusion and the chaos of the movie. So maybe that's not a nitpick from like a storytelling perspective, but from an audience member perspective, it is hard to keep track of everybody. Maybe you could have cut down the number of crew members from like 8 to 6. It would have been easier to keep track of. So it did get at some points really convoluted. Like, I don't know where this guy was. I can't keep track. They kind of break up and split off into different factions all the time. Makes it tough.
That's related to one of mine because I'm thinking the thing is this greasy, slippery bastard. I can't keep track of it. I think they burn it, incinerate it in the kennel, but then something crawls up in the vents. They burn Bennings, but then the thing comes back later. I was like, okay, does this thing just magically appear? It could be as tiny as like a cell or a blood sample for all we know, and it's still sentient. So capital problem. My big nitpick comes in the very beginning when it opens up and says Antarctica, winter. Isn't that just complete darkness?
Should be, I think.
Antarctica winters have like 24 hours of the day are just night.
Yeah.
I don't hang out there, but it kept me distracted because I was like, why are you in Antarctica in the winter when it is the coldest?
Yeah.
So it was very distracting because there's day scenes, there's night scenes.
They're not on a 24-hour cycle, that's for sure.
Yeah,
they're not on like our normal sunset sunlight. If they do have a day, it's like 20 minutes of like dusk. That is a big oversight. I guess they were hoping people in 1982 didn't really understand Antarctica and their day cycles.
Nitpick.
Yep. That is a good nitpick there, buddy.
That is the nitpick. All right, let's talk about some talking points. What do you got?
Let's talk special effects here. What do you think?
Very vast, bonkers, and kind of the bread and butter of this movie.
Yeah.
It really is what makes this thing the thing.
I feel like they gave the VFX team a lot of leeway, and they were like, just give me some messed up half human, half alien abomination kind of deal. And I feel like they gave it, my thoughts. I have no reason to think this. I didn't read anything about this, but I feel like they gave a lot of creative license to those folks. And I liked it personally. I thought because the thing's never defined and they gave it a lot of lateral movement as far as what its anatomy could be. And so if you're going to do that, let the effects team really go to town.
And the effects team was cooking. This was Rob Bottin. He was the special effects supervisor. He didn't actually do anything with the first appearance of the dog thing. So the kennel sequence was actually done by industry legend Stan Winston. So Rob, he just came from this like werewolf horror movie, The Howling, and he's like, I don't want to do any more special effects dogs. I'm done. And then comes over to Thing, and that's exactly what he does. He contacts Stan Winston, and he and his team, they come on aboard to help out. So the dog that was used in the sequence was essentially a puppet that one of Winston's teams operated.
Mm-hmm.
When the tentacles shoot out, it's shot in reverse. So when they are wrapped around the dogs, they retract back into the Thing. So it was reversed. So it looked like the tentacles were attacking the dogs. A lot of just good old school techniques there. Shout out to Winston and Rob, but they were cooking.
Big time cooking. Good on them. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. We talk about in other movies, do the special effects, does the CGI, do these kind of things hold up? And I think for what the movie is, I think it held up fine. Like I was never pulled out of the ambiance of the movie by the effects. I'll say that much.
No, and I think going into it, this is a 40-year-old movie. One of the main appeals is the grotesque, practical, dare I say these days, cheesy special effects. It comes with the territory. This is exactly what I wanted. I was ready for an 80s horror, gruesome, cheeseball, good time.
Having this be my first watch of this movie, I could definitely... I like going back and watching these movies from the 80s, 70s, even early 90s that I've never seen, and being able to connect the dots to like modern cinema or modern pop culture and say, wow, this was a huge inspiration for all of these other things. All these things that I never do where some of this, like if I had never seen this movie, I would think Stranger Things was just everything in it was organic. And then, as we mentioned before, it's this homage to this very tale that Carpenter put together. And it's cool to see the origins of it all, which brings me to another talking point, which is one of the most popular video games of the last 5 years, Among Us.
Among Us.
It's essentially this story. It's this story of there are imposters among us, and we have to, as a crew who's isolated, we have to figure out who they are.
Whittle it down.
And I'm not going to say The Thing was the first tale to ever do this. If you go back into the long history of human storytelling, I'm sure there's been similar deals. And I think The Thing just put it together so well for a lot of people in society today who are being the creatives to say this was just such an influence on all of these things. There's a B movie, not the B movie with Jerry Seinfeld, but there's a B movie called The Thing from Another World from 1951. It was actually the first iteration of the story because that movie and this movie are based off a short novel, a novella called Who Goes There from 1938. This movie was it was an inspiration from the novel, and it wasn't a remake from that 1950s movie. John Carpenter was like, I'm not going to remake the movie. He actually loved that movie as a kid, which I think we should just add it to our list for someday. I'll watch that movie outside of this podcast. I love the concept so much.
Okay. So he's like, I'm just going to base it off the original story, which is always a smart move. Always a smart move to go. Don't reboot the movie. Make your own interpretation of a story.
Retell the movie.
Retell the story.
Retell it.
So it's not like a completely original concept, but it is such a captivating concept. And I'm happy you brought up the very popular game Among Us, because that game's so fun because of the concept. And it's repetitively entertaining and engaging. So you don't need like an original concept to have this like insane great movie. You could just take like a basic idea such as paranoia, mistrust, and there's a killer among us. And I was digging it. I was digging it throughout this movie, especially the ending. So this brings me to my talking point, which is the ending explained. So Childs, McCready, They appear to be the last two humans left. Nick, what do you think is true? Like, what do you believe? I don't think John Carpenter ever outright said, yes, they were both humans. Yes, one of them was the thing. It would make no sense if they were both the thing, because then they'd just be like having a weird pissing contest, drinking scotch that means nothing to them because they're a thing. What do you think happens at the end? Because they do leave it very ambiguous and dark and open-ended.
In my view, if the way I would like it to be, I think they're both human, but they'll never be able to get over the distrust based on what they have experienced. So in my view, they're both human, but still unable to trust each other. And I think that's kind of the point of the movie. If you wanted to scratch, a few layers deeper, then yeah, obviously no one trusts each other because there's this thing, this murderous thing. So I don't blame people for not trusting each other, but it's this, hey, we've gone through the trauma and now there's nothing left that can be done for us to trust one another.
Do you think it would have been a little bit more captivating if they held on to that final scene with a little bit more tense dialogue between McCready and Childs, kind of like testing each other, openly discussing that they can never know and that like they're going to end their lives there with each other just in mistrust? Do you think that would have been a little bit better in your opinion? Because they do kind of like end it real short.
Yeah.
Like they show up, very few words are spoken, and like the audience is just like, oh, what happened? What was the resolution?
No, I like the ending, actually. I sort of enjoy sort of the like defeated mood that they are in, almost like this, fuck it. Like, we're just going to die here. And honestly, it doesn't matter if you're the thing or I'm the thing or if we're both the thing or we're both humans. Like, it doesn't matter anymore.
I think what I'm saying is I would like to relish in that mystery a little bit more at the end. Not necessarily have a resolution, but just kind of like have a cool down scene, just kill this crazy thing in the Blair scientist basement. But at the same time, maybe it's still here. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's me. I want a little bit more mystery and paranoia in the end.
If I'm Childs and I have that flamethrower and I know that I'm not infected, right? I know I'm a human. I'm burning McCready alive. I don't care what he is. It's the double tap, which brings me to my last talking point, unless you got anything more to go with.
I was just going to say, now there was an alternate ending that was shot.
Oh, of course, yes.
In Bill Lancaster's original screenplay, this is from alltherightmovies.com. He wrote two endings. One ended with McCready and Childs turning into the thing in front of each other. And the other one ended with McCready and Childs being picked up by a rescue helicopter and McCready saying, "Which way to a hot meal?" The insinuation in the second ending is that neither were the thing. Carpenter wanted an ambiguous ending. However, there's another ending that was shot by Carpenter but not used. And in this ending, it was revealed that McCready survived and was picked up by a rescue team while Childs froze to death. McCready then passed a blood test confirming that he was not the thing. John Carpenter essentially like really stood his ground. He's like, no, I really just want that dark, ambiguous, open-ended, thought-provoking ending. And multiple times on this podcast, we have been shafted by studios shoving in an alternate ending that we didn't like.
I would have hated that ending.
Yeah, we have very similar feelings here. I love that. I love the ambiguous ending.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, oh, the audiences are not going to like that. It's not going to be a happy ending at the end. It's like, they don't all have to be happy ending winners. You know, we can just have that like crazy, like I'll think about it years later. Like, is Childs the thing? I think Childs the thing. I think he's the thing.
Well, here's my thought. There's only two options for the ending. One is McCready being the thing and Childs not being the thing, because Childs is holding the flamethrower. Because if Childs is the thing and McCready's not, Childs just kills McCready outright. If both of them are the thing, then it's a moot point because they both know they're the thing. So it's either they're both human or McCready's the thing. I think those are the only two options based on what I know about the thing.
You don't think Childs could be the thing?
No, because if Childs is the thing, he just kills McCready because McCready has no defense. You know, I'm thinking very logical here. I know that's not quite always the theme. Like the movie's not always logical. I think the only other ending I would have been okay with is if one of them was the thing and got sent back to like civilization It's like this open-ended, like, humanity's screwed kind of thing. Yeah, they kind of a darker ending. But I, like you said, I like the ambiguous ending.
Who's to say that one of them didn't kill each other? Because we did cut to the credits real quick.
They could have ended up killing each other, or agreeing to like a suicide pact where it's like we have to be sure.
Yeah.
And the reason I like the ending is my last talking point here, which is let's not overlook MacReady killed Clark in cold blood when he wasn't the thing. He wasn't infected, it wasn't assimilated, and he just shot him dead. MacReady's a killer. He also kind of went crazy when he was holding everybody hostage with the dynamite. There was no good guy in this film, really, if you think about it, right? MacReady was quote unquote the hero.
I think it was the Norwegian guy. He was trying to end all of this at the jump.
Yep, he was like, that dog. If only he knew English. Man, if the Norwegians knew English, the movie would have been so short.
Or the other way around, if the Americans knew Norwegian, because apparently the spoken lines were literally like in Norwegian. You got to kill that dog. It's not a dog. It's a monster. It's a weird thing. It's a thing. You need to kill it. Get away from it. And all the Americans are like, huh? So, if you spoke Norwegian, the movie was spoiled in the first 5 minutes.
Or going back to the Norwegians, if he just had a better shot and actually got the dog.
Horrible shot.
Instead of shooting whatever's face is in the leg.
Bennings.
I like the ending because, what I was just talking about. MacReady's not there's no good guys in this movie. There really isn't any good guys in this movie.
And that's a nice, juicy thing about this movie is that the paranoia, the mistrust, and the situation brings everyone to their all-time low and really shows their true colors and that they're all kind of shitty. There's not like a really righteous person in this group.
Yeah, there is no altruism in this situation, which I enjoy. I think the ending they had, that open-ended, abrupt ending, I think it was good. I think that was my preferred way for this to end.
Hey, can I give you my sarcastic selling point for 1982's The Thing?
Please do.
Very familiar properties we've brought up the entire podcast. This is Among Us Politics meets Stranger Things Monsters. 2 properties that came out way after this movie.
I love that. My sarcastic selling point. So I know that the spirit of the sarcastic selling point is if you had an elevator pitch, right? You find yourself in an elevator with a big time producer.
The base layer, the basic idea is like, can you break down this movie to say this movie plus this movie is this movie? And if you can't do that, just give me like a selling point. Give me like a pitch.
So I thought of it as a pitch. So I'm going to have 2 people as part of this pitch. So here we go. The guy pitching says, we have a thriller horror mystery with an alien, but giving it an Invasion of the Body Snatchers vibe. And the exec says, you got a name for that alien, son? The Thing. I love it.
I'm in.
Final review. Fight.
Okay, let's look at what the other guys are saying about 1982's The Thing. Starting out with Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' ratings, 85% of critics love this movie, or like this movie, technically.
Love it enough to give it a thumbs up. The people, on the other hand, well, they're above that. They give it a 92.
They love this shit even more.
That's some high praise.
Going over to Metacritic, freaking nerds over there, they're giving this a 57.
Yikes.
Which translates to a 5.7 on our scale. Really? Okay.
Well, at least the people are a little better. They give it an 8.6.
That's good. A little bit more justice there.
And now, our spookiest, dookiest, ghoulish ghoul score from IMDb, 8.2.
Oh, nailed it.
I love when we're on the same page there.
Sweet. We're getting so good at that.
It's almost like we both are The Thing. Makes you think.
We have assimilated the Just Play It podcast. Okay, let me hit you with my laughable log line, followed by my candy corn points, followed by my final thoughts on this movie. When Norwegian researchers assume Americans can speak Norwegian, they begin to yell and shoot at them, and then get shot, failing to contain a deadly shape-shifting alien that will now attempt to pick off the Americans one by one. That is, unless Sourdough MacReady has anything to say about it. 8.1 candy corn points. This is in the great eights for me. This has been quite the month, I have to say, of spooky movies, except for Maximum Overdrive. That was garbage. But I gotta say, these last stretch of movies for October, these have been amongst my highest rated of the whole season. Scream, loved. Signs, loved. And now I'm here at The Thing. I thought this movie was really good. I didn't know what to expect going into this, but we got a nice, simple concept, very thought-provoking, very engaging. This is a movie that keeps you glued to the seat. It's a tale as old as time. Mistrust, paranoia. I love it. Special effects were, I'm assuming, very impressive for the time. Very cheesy now, but that just adds to the charm and the magic of being a classic horror movie, especially from legendary John Carpenter. I'm just going to keep it short and simple. I really like this movie, and I think I can rewatch this next Halloween. I can rewatch this with my kids just to pop it on and scare the crap out of them. It was fun. I liked it. And I'm glad that we both came to the same thought of the ending and our thoughts on it. You love a nice thought-provoking ending, especially with horror movies. You don't need it to wrap up in a bow tie and just be a happy ending. Some of them do, which is fine, but sometimes you just want that eerie, creepy, lingering, is everything all good or is everything all bad? So I loved it. Fan of The Thing.
All right, let me hit you with my log line and my thoughts here. So my laughable log line is things are not as they appear as a thing is uncovered in Antarctica and things get wild as the crew needs to figure things out. Thing. 8.4.
Right.
This is just a good movie. It is. I didn't think it would get that from me based on how it started. Just as the movie went along, I was loving it. I'm not going to say the acting is out of this world. It's Kurt Russell. You get what you get. Maybe I'm giving it a bit of a pass because I've seen him in the Escape movies, and that acting isn't anything to write home about, but you know what you're going to get. I wouldn't even call it a thriller or suspenseful. By today's terms, I didn't ever feel suspense, but it was good mystery. It kept me guessing, kept me wondering. There's things that happen where you're like, what? But you overlook it. There's a saying, I like, home projects, DIY. My dad was a general contractor. James, your dad loved doing work around the house, was great with his hands and his tools. And there's a great saying that finished work hides a lot of sins. Basically, if you're really good with the finished work, you could make a lot of things that shouldn't look good. And I think this is an example of that, in the sense that there are things that might drag other movies down, but when the movie's fun and the story's fun, you forgive a lot of it because you're having a good time. And so I don't judge every movie on the same exact scale. I mean, you can earn forgiveness. You can earn forgiveness in movies. And I think this movie does that. It's an 8.4. Again, love the ending. Like you said, James, not everyone needs to be a hero, right? What was our biggest? I mean, I think the biggest example of that was Juice, right? When we reviewed Juice, and we said, man, the studio really forced it to be like a good guy winning. When in reality, this movie did it where there's no winners. It was just this story. It was tense. It was stressful. It left you a little messed up. I could see myself in 1982 leaving the movie theater with my mind blown and staying up at night trying to figure it all out. But again, really, if you just asked me to sum this up as a movie, and somebody said, what'd you think of The Thing? I would simply say, good movie.
It did the damn thing. And if The Thing can do it, why can't Juice? All right,
James, The Thing as a movie, it got that dog in him.
It got that dog in him because it's our highest rated movie of the season. About damn time.
And you know what? I feel good about it.
We're on a nice stretch here. Batman, Scream, The Thing. I'm cool. I'm cool with The Thing topping it. It's actually, as of right now, this is top 4 of all time. I mean, we're a young podcast, but The Thing, it got that dog in them, got that corn in them, and it got that thing in them because it's doing good things. And I don't know if I'm saying things in a meta sense or just inadvertently because it's such a common word, but I think it's safe to say just play it. is down with this thing.
If you haven't seen The Thing, or if you thought to yourself, it's probably not a movie for me, shut your face. It's a great movie. Go watch it.
Or shut your gut, wherever your mouth is. We're here. We love spooky season. We love horror movies, and we've had a hell of a ride. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Just Play It Podcast. Nick, I think I've been misspeaking here and saying follow us on Twitter. Isn't it X?
It is X.
Follow us on X. I don't know what that is. I don't even X. Nick, you run the X, so you can X all over the place and do whatever you guys do at X. I'll stay in my YouTube, Instagram realm.
Perfect.
Because I don't know what the hell Elon Musk is Xing up over there. Please follow us. Please find us. And enjoy our commentary on the many things we have to say. We're going to kind of slowly transition out of spooky season with a movie next week that does have to do with some sort of monster.
It is a good transition out of spooky season. And going back to our cruel mention from earlier in this podcast, it is similar to Glaive.
Okay. You have the hints. You have the groundwork to guess what we're reviewing next week. Thank you so much for listening. We're heading gone. And remember, if you're not sure about something, you should just torch it with a flamethrower.
Kill it with fire!
I'm your worst nightmare.
Man, if the Norwegians knew English, the movie would have been so short.
You got fingered. Sorry.